Magic Makers. I'm Mom Birella.
And I'm CJ Peterson. Welcome to Magic Making Mischief. Get your wands to the ready because we have a special guest today. We solemnly swear we're up to no good. Today we welcome Tad Wood from, let's see if I can get this correct, Lone Star Heroes Comics and Toys.
Perfect.
Yay! So we met Mr. Wood at Pop Culture Power Show?
Yes.
Indeed.
Awesome. And go ahead and take it while I do some back end stuff.
And actually, I had been to one of his stores in Galveston before we met and done a short video of it. So that was our first time going out there. And my kids, I've raised them right. They're fandom themed children. So and they have a nice entrenchment into the horror genre thanks to me. But it was awesome. Like, we loved the whole layout and everything. And then I find out when we met him, that's apparently the smaller store, I believe.
It is. Yeah.
So how many stores do you actually have?
So I've got 3. The original one is the Galveston one. That was kind of my original Seawall store. And then the NASA Parkway store is the second one. It's close to the Space Center. And then the new one is our 4,000 square foot one in Lake Jackson.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. I think I've got total 8,000 square feet of stores. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a lot. And they're all in different counties. So, a lot of driving. So
You juggle them. I mean, that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's basically what I do is I drive from store to store and have to juggle the stores for sure.
So what made you, first of all, want to start a comic book store, let alone 3?
Well, like, I never did want to start a comic book store. Like, I did when I was younger. But, I actually got out of comic books for, like a dozen plus years. And, I was in academics for a long time. My background's really in biology and biochemistry. I studied the evolution of venomous snakes, and I was a field researcher. What's that?
How did the 2 connect? That does not.
They don't connect. So, I mean, that was what I was doing. And some life changes just led me to leave that path. And, I was basically like, now that I'm not doing this anymore, that's someone's calling through. But so now that I'm not doing this anymore, now what am I going to do? Like, my whole life's goal was to be like the Indiana Jones of herpetology, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's what I did, research in the jungle, specimen collection, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I decided like there was some big shakeups in my life, and I'm like, I just kind of lost my passion for the whole thing. And, I knew if I finished on that course, it was going to be so specialized that I might have to end up seeking work in Nebraska or Siberia or God knows wherever I had to go to get that work. And it really wasn't appealing to me. Like, I really wanted to stay in Texas, and particularly down here on the Gulf Coast. Mm-hmm. So, I didn't know what I was going to do, and one of these days I got this idea that I was going to pull out my old comic book collection, and I was going to liquidate it, and I was going to use the startup money from this collection to go and teach English in Cambodia. And then I was going to use Cambodia as like a jump off point to explore Southeast Asia. And instead, what I did was I started to buy and sell and buy and sell and buy and sell until I had like an entire house full of comic books. And and really, like, I got started buying and selling comic books in the very early 1990s, before the internet. Like, I would put little classified ads in the newspaper that I buy comic books and stuff. And so people would call me up and like, hey, we've got this collection, or we've got like these books or whatever. And I'd go over there and check them out, and I'd pay them for the books. And then, I was mainly, I'd kind of collect them. I'd sell a few of them here and there, but it was mainly a big collection. And but then, once I started to accumulate all of these books down here in Galveston, it was like, now what am I going to do with this stuff? Like, I can take, a little bit higher value books and liquidate those on eBay. Well, what do you do with all the $2 and $3 books? Either you're going to have to bulk them off in long boxes, or you're going to have to open a store. And I'm like, oh God, rent and utilities and all of this stuff. And, like, I'm going to have to be in there. We're going to have to do all this stuff, And so, but it turned out that there was really no other good way to do it. And so we ended up opening our first store, and then the rest is history. So
when did you open the second, and when did you open the third?
So it's been very aggressive expansion. We opened 3 stores in 7 years. So every couple of years. So the first store was early 2016. The second store was late 2018. And then this third store was the spring of 2022.
Gotcha. So, that kind of answered my next question of how did you survive like the COVID shutdown of everything?
COVID was great, man. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, those stimulus checks, and nobody could do anything with their money. So you had a bunch of rich people sitting around without being able to go to the bar, without being able to travel, without being able to do anything like that. And so that's what they did, is they put on their mask and they came in and they got comic books. And so, like, the market just really shot up, and we did better than ever during the pandemic. So that
makes sense, because the Comic-Cons were shut down too. So you had all these Comic-Con people, junkies like me, who are missing the Comic-Cons. Is like, hey, comic book store, let's go back.
And you couldn't do anything. So you hear all of these comic stores complaining about how hard the pandemic was. I mean, I don't get it, because like, we would have, it's like, oh man, this purchase here is like suspiciously the size of a stimulus check. Oh, so is this one, and it'd be like, so we really did not have a bad time with the pandemic, for sure.
James Money says hi. Hi, James.
I actually think it was during that time that we actually came into the store for the first time, was around that time period, actually, which is funny. Okay, I got to reference this, because your research on snakes and your reference to Indiana Jones cracked me up, because that's the one thing he didn't do with snakes.
Yeah. So that's always been the thing. So Indiana Jones is the fictitious character that has inspired my life more than any other. But the one twist in this is that he hates snakes and I love snakes, right? So it's like, and so, but the funny thing is, like, so Harrison Ford is a big conservationist, right? So not just the character of Indiana Jones, but Harrison Ford is the vice chair of Conservation International. And when I was with one of my degrees, I was at the University of Missouri, and we had a big tropical ecology department there. And Harrison Ford came there and received a huge ecology award while I was a student there. I never got to meet him, but it was, and so would go into the meeting rooms, and like Harrison Ford's picture was on like posters of the board of like Conservation International and all this stuff. So
I did not know that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's a huge conservationist. Like, he has huge swaths of land in Yellowstone National Park, and he donates a lot of it to the parks and conservation and stuff. So, huge conservationist. And so he's a huge inspiration. And then the character Indiana Jones, huge inspiration for my love of field research and exotic travel, which I do a lot of exotic travel and stuff. So, yeah. So, huge fan of Harrison Ford.
Okay, so in reference to your stores, you like to have special guests out, and you have a love for horror at this point. Like, that is like your main focus, right?
I'm a horror film fanatic. I am. I'm a film person in general. I'm kind of a film aficionado, like I'm really into, I'm Alfred Hitchcock and John Waters and Martin Scorsese, and just all of the production values of film and so I'm kind of a film connoisseur, but my main thing is I love horror films, and I also love what's called grindhouse and exploitation films. So you're talking about your video nasties, you're talking about your grindhouse action film, stuff that inspired like Rob Zombie and Quentin Tarantino, those
So
kind of films.
stuff that gives me nightmares you're jonesing on.
Yeah. So and I love dicey material. I really do. I really do. And I think that the cinema is best when it's just like offensive and cheap thrills. Get a bucket of popcorn, go in there, and just like see all the gore and all the nudity and all the dicey stuff. It's just fun. And so yeah. So I do like that sort of stuff.
I think what I was approaching, though, is you have a certain special guest coming in July.
We do, yes. Well, we have special guests, plural, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and the team,
what's that?
Yeah. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we are going to have Doug Jones and the cast of Hocus Pocus out, part of the cast of Hocus Pocus 1 and 2 out. And so Doug Jones, many do not know his name, but many know what he does. Like, they might know who he is, but if you've seen a film with someone in a creature costume, vast majority of the time, this is going to be Doug Jones. Doug Jones is a modern day man of a thousand faces, like Lon Chaney Jr. and Sr., Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi, like Doug Jones is the modern equivalent of these kind of actors, right? And I would argue that Doug Jones, in hindsight, is going to be viewed as much bigger as these guys because of the scope of the work that he's done, how many films that he's done, and the diversity of films that he has done. And not only that, he's a spectacular contortionist. He has this lanky body, and he's in such good shape, and he's able to fit into all of these crazy costumes and do all of these contortions and things. So he's actually really a pretty spectacular figure, for sure.
Actually, I honestly didn't know his name. I mean, of course, I knew him as Billy Butcherson from Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, right.
Whenever you started telling me about it, I looked him up and I'm like, oh, wait, I have seen him and stuff. You don't realize because, like, the cosplayers, it's like they look totally different every time. You're not going to recognize them. And unless you're looking for their name in the credits or know that they're in it, you don't realize it's just like that's a sign of a really good process that's happened there, or good acting, in this case.
And so, like Doug Jones, his list is massive.
Oh, it's massive, and he's like one of the most famous people you ever meet that the average person doesn't know his name. And yeah, I mean, he was the Silver Surfer in Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer. He was Abe Sapien in the Hellboy films. He was also the Angel of Death in Hellboy 2 and the Chamberlain in Hellboy 2. He was the Amphibian Man in The Shape of Water. He was the Ghost of Edith's mother in Crimson Peak. He was Mac Tonight from the 80s, the Moon Man from the 80s McDonald's commercials, right?
What?
Oh, yeah, it's one of his earliest gigs, right? Yeah. So, yeah, and so I'm a big fan. So another one, he's getting ready to do, to be Nosferatu in F.W. Murnau's remake of the 1922 silent film.
What?
So yeah, he's gonna, and I've heard that he may be Frankenstein in a Guillermo del Toro film.
Oh, wow.
So he really is bona fide Monster Man of old, you know what I mean? Like he's that kind of figure, so, and I'm a big fan of Frankenstein and the Wolf Man and all of that stuff, and so another one, he's Baron Afanas in What We Do in the Shadows. He's Saru in Star Trek Discovery. Mm-hmm. So I mean the list just it's massive.
So you said he's coming along with a few other guests who else?
Yeah, and so Larry Bagby and Tobias Jelinek, who were the bullies in the first Hocus Pocus, they're going to be there. And then all of the little girls who were the young witches in the second Hocus Pocus, they were the flashback witches to their young years, they're going to be with us. And so let me remember their name. It is Nina Kitchen, Juju Brenner, and Taylor Page Henderson are going to be with us. And so, and they all are little starlets, right? Like if you look at what they've done, like they've done all of like these little, Nickelodeon things and all these they speak at little things and little events and stuff. And they've done all these little credits and things. So, they're little up and comers for sure. And they're really early on the convention circuit. Most people have not seen them yet at a convention.
So
it's so cool that you have like.
door. I was
I
gonna
was
say
just
which
saying, it's so cool
door
that you've
and
got all.
what date. We still haven't gotten there yet.
Yes.
What's
Location.
that? I'm half deaf.
So
Sorry.
we haven't gotten to which store and what date yet.
Oh, that is going to be our Lake Jackson Superstore at 120 Texas Highway 332 in Lake Jackson in Brazos Square, which is right by the Academy in Lake Jackson. And it is going to be July 15th and 16th from noon to 7 both days. That's a Saturday and Sunday.
That's the big one.
Yeah, and that's the big one. That's the 4,000 square foot one. Well, we really couldn't handle like 6 guests at once at some of our others. And we're having other, like on the 21st of October, we're having several of the original cast from the 1974 Texas Chainsaw Massacre will be with us. That's going to be at the NASA Parkway store. And on the 28th of October, we're having Caroline Williams, who was Stretch from Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. And we're having Dan Yeager, who was Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2013. And they are going to be at the Lake Jackson store on the 28th of October. And so that's his so far. Yeah. And so the one at NASA Parkway, they're bringing the green van from the movie, like how the teens drive the green van. So they're bringing the green van, the animatronic Leatherface, and so it should be a good time as well. So yeah.
Makeup Mom and Son says hi everyone here in the background at work. Hi.
Hi. I don't know if you can see this, but I wore my Hocus Pocus shirt for today because
It's very colorful.
that's one that I mean, okay. I'm weird about the horror that I like. Like I like classic monsters and I like kind of like the weird family friendly almost horror genre that's out there. Like those are my favorites, but
what's your favorite classic monster movie?
Dracula. Oh, Bela Lugosi all the way. Yeah.
Bela Lugosi Dracula, huh? That's a big one for me. I'd have to say I'd add to that one Bride of Frankenstein. It's alive!
I found out the craziest thing the other day. I didn't realize that the lady that played Bride of Frankenstein was also the nanny that quits on Mary Poppins.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I had no idea. I was like, oh my gosh, that's nice.
Well, to tell you how I am about horror stories, to this day, I will not let us buy a house within a mile of a graveyard because of Night of the Living Dead. No.
Okay, no.
No, it cannot be. We cannot get a house within a mile. I don't care how nice it is. I don't care if it's free. We will not get a house within a mile of a graveyard because of Night of the Living Dead. Nope.
Very funny.
Will not do it.
So, I'm not superstitious at all. I'm a skeptic. Because of my background in science and stuff like that. So I'm a big skeptic, but I love the subject matter, horror and the occult and the supernatural and all of this stuff. I'm fascinated with all of it, but it's to me I don't believe in any of it. But yeah. So if I did, I've got all over my house, I've got voodoo dolls and skulls and shrunken heads and all this weird stuff. Yep. So yeah. Prayer candles and crazy stuff.
No.
They and CJ have become best friends at this point. It's I'm all into this stuff, and she's like, "And no," I'm like, "No, yeah, you're gonna come with me to this creepy place, and we're gonna go check it out in October. That'll be fun."
I love creepy places. I'm a creepy place, a creepy store person. I love to go to the voodoo museum and the voodoo shops and all that shit. Yeah.
I told her, I said if I had to have a margarita beforehand because there's no way.
Well, I had one beforehand anyway.
It's creepy and me just don't go together very well.
I don't know. I was the weird chick that watched the horror movies and then people were like, "Oh, that's so lame," and now they're like, "Oh, that's so cool," and I'm like, "You guys suck." Make up your minds. I'm sorry.
I'll tell you what. They're really everybody's joiners with horror now. all of this ticky-tacky horror festivals and all this horror stuff and all these people that wouldn't have given this stuff a time of day. Now it's like the popular thing to do. And like, man, like I'm OG, man. Like I've been doing this stuff since I was a little kid. Just fascinated with all of this material, you know?
Oh my gosh, yes. My dad was the kind that was like, okay, we're going to watch this movie, but it's not scary because I'll show you all the effects and how they work. And I'm like, oh my gosh, 5-year-old me sitting there, I'm never going outside again. 13-year-old me going, let's watch this next horror movie, Dad. Show me the mistake.
Oh, like Cape Fear. I would look under the car for like the next month after watching that.
Oh, I love Cape Fear, man. I love the remake, especially with Robert De Niro. Oh yeah, you're gonna learn about loss, counselor.
See, I'm one of those people that's also fascinated with like, I can't think of the brain. My brain is not connecting. Digging up old stuff.
Archaeology?
Yes. Like I said, my brain's not connecting today. But I'm fascinated with archaeology. But that's studying real history. It's not studying creepy stuff.
Yeah. So one of my early things, like that Indiana Jones was an inspiration for archaeology, and then later on it turned into like, you know, fascination with organismal biology. But originally, yeah, I wanted to be Indiana Jones and do the archaeology for sure.
But that's science, and that's real.
Oh yeah,
dealing with the creepy stuff was not real.
Yeah. So that's definitely not science. Yeah, for sure. It's wonky.
And being a sci-fi geek, every time I see this stuff that scientists are working with this and cloning, and I'm like, where are the radioactive spiders? I'm like, what is wrong with you people? We've seen these movies. It doesn't turn out right.
Yeah.
But
craziness.
One can always hope. Okay.
Who knows? We'll end up in a different time zone. I don't know.
Okay. So, before we get too late into our time, so I know that like you've got a lot of different guests that you have out. Do you have anything that you can give us like an inside know that it's like farther in the future that's kind of coming up?
Everybody that's on the docket for now is public.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any secrets. You know, I don't have anything I'm holding back for right now. I have a couple of that I've been talking to, but they're not on the docket. You know, there are a couple that are pretty spectacular that I've been talking to, but yeah, I can't mention anything about maybes because I just have awful competitors and enemies in the area that try to foil me as soon as I breathe a word of anything I might be doing. So I keep it all close to the vest until it's time to sign the contract. So
I don't know. I love the fact that you're combining just, you know, a standard comic book store with, you know, the toys on a different level, adding to it different guests throughout it. And I think that's an amazing combination.
We want to be a pop culture store for sure, you know, and stay tuned because I've got big plans in the future, much bigger than anything I've done so far. But that's a little bit into the distant future. You know, gotta take small steps right now, but you know, like I got some big plans for some cool stuff. So
people who are interested in what you do have coming up or what you do have in your store, how can they find you online?
So I have not launched a website yet. It's under construction. I'm going to be launching a website, but I really have a fantastic Facebook page. We have 13,000 followers. And it is just Lone Star Heroes Comics and Toys. And then I put the little tagline, the best little comic shop in Texas, like the best little whorehouse in Texas.
I saw that.
And so I think some people get mad at me because they're like, how come they're saying that they're the best? No. It's a joke. It's like the best little whorehouse in Texas, you idiot.
I started laughing when I saw that pop up.
Yeah.
It's part of the day. Yeah.
Jess says hi, Mama Morel and CJ. Hey, Jess. So for somebody who's interested in maybe starting a comic book store, like you said, you kind of happened into it. Would you give anybody specific advice? Would you give them regarding?
Yeah, I'll tell you, this is the most important piece of advice in this climate. don't. Don't open it up. First of all, if you really like this stuff and you're really into it, don't open it up. You'll ruin it for you. See, I don't collect anymore. And so this is just I'm trying to make this environment for people. I'm trying to make this a place for collectors to come, but I don't do it. I always tell people don't get high off your own supply. What that Scarface, right? Don't get high off your own supply. And so you're not gonna find like all these, like I got weird stuff I collect, for my travels and stuff, but you're not gonna find a bunch of Funko Pops and things like that. I mean, I've got a massive pile of comic books just right off screen here, but those boxes are like getting processed for my store, right? So yeah, I would say don't do it. Like, I mean, if you want to make money, like, I mean, you can, but it's like really hard to do that. Like, I mean, you've got to be really out there. It's really cutthroat, and there are just too many comic stores, and they're closing all of the time. And so if you think that you're going to open up with a little collection and buy a bunch of stuff out of the new catalog, like, there's better things to do with your time, better places to invest. Comic books are king of collectible, and there's a lot of money in comic books. There's a lot of valuable comic books, but there's a lot of bullshit comic books too. I mean, there's just a lot of your junk, and most collections you pick up are just full of junk. And, and it's a lot of work. It's tedium, So what I do is I sit here all day long. I haven't in a while. I've kind of been lazy the last few weeks, but I sit here. I don't have a schedule, which is a cool thing, but that's taken me a long time to get that. Like I've got employees that run all of the shifts, and so mostly I'm just like putzing around, like doing whatever I want to do, running stuff to a store, processing collection, doing social media, talking to celebrities, talking to agents, doing this different stuff, and the big thing is sitting in my living room processing comic collections. And processing comic collections is tedious. It's hard work. I mean, you're processing hundreds of thousands of $2 and $3 books and a bunch of really nice ones too. But, I mean, the tedium involved, you get a collection, you've got to shuck off dirty bags and boards. You got to put clean bags and boards in. You got to assess, the grade. You got to price it, look them up in the guide. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of these little things. And so most people are not cut out for that level of tedium. And you'll know this because when you go in their comic book stores, they've just got these disheveled, uncategorized boxes full of stuff. Like these are all $2, these are all $1. And so one of the secrets that we do is we're extremely organized, and that is because I'm uniquely suited to tedium. And so I sit all day and make that so. And so when you go into my stores, all of those comic books with bags and boards on them, besides the ones that are on the new rack, like I touched those, like I made those,
So you go through all of them.
I do. Like I have had my hands multiple times on all of those books, and then all of my employees have had their hands on these books at different stages of filing. I mean, the tedium involved in this, and you will go into a store, that they're not into tedium because there's, things are a little shabby, things are a little disorganized. And so, but the real secret to that, and I'll tell you, if you wanted to do a comic book store, that is the real secret, is that you really need to pay attention to the tedium and the organization of it. And you know what? Put a colorful coat of paint on the wall. I mean, don't leave bare white walls and just put new posters that you got out of the diamond shipment up on the wall. Put cool stuff up, make it look nice, make it look unique. Put your stamp on there. You see so many cookie cutter things. Don't be cookie cutter. Do your own thing. But also, you can't innovate too much. I mean, the bread and butter is selling vintage comics and toys. So, I mean, that's really what you need to have. And I don't know if that made any sense, but that's my advice, and I'm sticking to it.
Definitely. Well, Tad, thank you for coming on. So in other words, if anybody wants to do it, don't worry about it. Just go to Tad's store and buy what he's got because he's already got it.
That's what I would tell you. Come to Lone Star Heroes Comics and Toys, the best little comic shop in Texas.
There you go. It was a pleasure to talk with you. Make sure to buy his stores or go to Facebook at Lone Star Heroes Comics
and Toys
on Facebook, and make sure to follow him, and you can find out. Remember Doug Jones on the 15th of July. He's got other guests in October, 15th and 16th of July. It's not just Doug Jones, it's other ones from
Yes, it's a whole hocus pocus.
It's a whole hocus pocus reunion.
There you go. Make sure to come over and see him at his stores. That one's at Lake Jackson. Next week on the 5th, we're going to have Cora Brinkley, who's a cosplayer. We're going to check her out and see what she's got going on. If you missed the announcement on Sunday, we've added a new co-host. We've added Miss Yukita Cosplay, and occasionally we can have her on the shows with us, with her schedule permitting. Otherwise, she will also be joining us out in the field of the different Comic-Cons, so make sure to catch us at one around you. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I was going to say, and you can see her in our new logo and also our new intro, which I love. We did it for the first time today.
Yeah, definitely. So in the meantime, catch us next week with Miss Cora Brinkley for cosplay. So get your wands to the ready, because...
Thanks so much for joining us, guys. I'll be there at Lone Star Comics and Toys.
Lone Star Heroes, Comics and Toys.
I'll be there on the 15th for the Hocus Pocus meet there, so that'll be awesome. So if you guys are there, come say hi. And until next time, mischief managed. Bye.
Bye.